How's it going, YouTube? Coming to you today with another video. And today, guys, the brain is going to be answering your questions. And today I'm going to be going in depth into a few of these, especially just because some of them are really important right now in the format. And I hope that they can also help many of you that haven't asked this question yet. Maybe you are feeling the same way. If you haven't already checked my sponsors over on Gem, Cloud, Arla, Imperium, Dragonshield, RW, MainPhaze, and Grimoire, definitely go ahead and do so down below in the description. And then if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, definitely go ahead and do that so we can hit our goal at 30,000. Now, the first one I have for you today is going to be someone just really having a difficult time picking up a deck and trying to learn what a deck can do right off the bat, and then figuring out how to fit in specific hand traps, non-engine, like what are the ratios, what do you cut, what do you add, which is an extremely valid question. And this is something that I feel like a lot of people struggle with, even if they're not openly asking about it, because this is something that I feel like many players have an issue with. And you really have to just like play the deck, bring it to a local, go into a simulator, play it on DB. You don't really get a feel for what the deck can do by fishbowling hands. You get a feel for if you get Veilered, and Veiler is like really common in the format, right? And you're like, well, this is a horrible choke point. Like you're playing Magic Spectre, I'm just going to pull something out of thin air, right? And you're like, wow, my whole deck can't get targeted. You summon your Link 2, and they go Veiler, and you go, oh. Like you learn really quickly what the deck's problems are. And you shouldn't play the deck perfectly all the time, right? Like through no interruption, no hand traps, you should expect that there's going to be a hand trap or two, right? And so you're like, oh, this is like a crazy choke point. Let's say I get Ashed here. What else can I do? And if you're coming up with a lot more questions than answers, you kind of have to like move things around and determine what you're missing, right? If you're missing starters, if you're missing an eruption, if you're missing combo pieces, or if it's not a combo deck and you don't have enough control cards to really control the tempo of the duel, right? So there's a lot of ways that you kind of have to look at a deck. And when you're trying to figure out like what the cards do, you really have to play them in a duel, because I say this all the time as somebody who is a manager. There is only so much that I can teach someone, but the real information is going to be brought out when you're working, and then that like different situation just comes up, right? And that's something where you can teach somebody combo lines, but like what happens when you get hit with like Tragodia out of nowhere and you're like, who is playing Tragodia? It's 2026, right? And then you're just like, okay, what do I do now, right? So those are things where you can only watch content and figure out what combo lines are, but you don't get the depth of what the deck can do and what it can play around without actually just like jamming games with the deck and then figuring out where the problems lie. The next question here is about Blitzclick. Now, this deck is going to be really good in the TCG. It has a lot of different options that you can run with it. I know a lot of people are already seeing like the Nadir Servant package, the Dogmatica package just being added in, but there's also like the Ryziel build, which is really good. So, I mean, Blitzclick is going to be one of those things that you can kind of just like mix in with a few different decks. I really don't think that like the Nadir Dogmatica package is bad. I think that it's pretty good and it's something that you should definitely check out. But you should also check out the Ryziel package if you haven't already. Thoughts on Dedalius, the Adamantipator support, and Asutra. So these are all really interesting. I don't think that any of them are like a tier 1 meta threat. I think they're all going to be like tier 2, honestly. I don't really feel like they're like that crazy. I know a lot of people are looking at like Asutra, but like I don't really feel like they're going to be that crazy. I do think that it's nice to see that we're getting more options in the meta. We're going to have more support for Adamantipator. That deck never really got a chance to shine because it was a COVID deck. But seeing these decks all have their chance, and also shout out to Rist for the Dedalius support. I know he's just over the moon right now. This is the one Umi player I know in my life, and I'm sure that they are extremely excited. But I definitely think that it's fair to say that these are probably all going to sit at like tier 2, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. They can always compete at tier 2. But it's going to be something where you're playing into a meta with the Light and Darkness deck, the Invoked Engine, you're playing against KT, right? There's just other decks, unfortunately, that, power creep is power creep, but These other decks are just like miles better at the moment. If you're playing 3 to 4 bricks, I would always recommend going up to like 43. I don't like going anything over 43 unless you're going to go up to like 50 or 60. I just feel like 44 or 45, 46, like these are just like really awkward numbers by the math. You can always use a hypergeometric calculator and then try to figure out how often your bricks will show up. But playing a deck like Tearlament, my magic number and topping the regionals that I did with that deck was always 43. I thought 43 was great, and you do play a couple bricks in a deck like that that you don't want to see, right? So I think that playing something like 43 is always proper. I would not be stuck at 40. I know that there's some Mitsurugi lists going around right now that are playing like double mirror, and then they have the one up Saji, right? They have a couple things that they just like don't want to see in their hand, but they're still playing 40. So I mean, it really depends on like what you want to get out of the deck, right? But for me, I usually go up to like 43. I've never really had a problem with the math on that though. I'm on Pyramid 2 struggling against Branded. Any text I can use to help out Dogma and shore up how grindy things get. Friend. Wosu is in your engine. The world is your oyster. You can out whatever you want to out. It doesn't matter. You have Wosu. You have a searchable, super crazy kaiju in your deck. Please use it. Just play the one of. It is so broken and it's recurable for some reason. So definitely make sure that Wosu is in your deck and then you can just like get rid of the dogma. The other thing, if you're just struggling in general against Branded, is things like D-Ground, Die-Fi. You're on Mitsu, play Super Poly, and play your own Dogma, right? They go to tag out their Ecclesia into fall and pitch one, use Super Poly for Dogma, right? So you have a lot of ways you can be outing Branded. It is a rough, grindy matchup, but you have the options in your deck to be able to beat that. What's your favorite conspiracy theory? So for me, it's probably Antarctica. And it's kind of crazy because every country owns a little bit of Antarctica. And there's a story where there is such a large part of Antarctica that is like off limits, you can't go. And there's supposedly like a tunnel that leads you below the ice. And they went so far down that they found a creature that was breathing on its own in like a almost no air area, right? It's like underwater, just chilling, and it was like super intelligent and kind of dangerous, right? And I was like, oh my god, like this is crazy. And if you look up like alien activity under the ice in Antarctica, you're gonna find a lot of information about just like the different theories and things that have been heard or said, and it's kind of wild. I could go on for hours about Antarctica and like all the crazy things that happen over there, and like it's so restricted, and that really makes you wonder. What's your favorite color? Also, if you were a Yu-Gi-Oh card, what would your type and attribute be? So my favorite color is maroon. I love maroon. It's a lovely color. It's the best. And I would be a water aqua. So this is the same because if I was a gym leader, I would be a water gym leader. I love the water attribute the most. I think that it's the coolest and you have the most options. And there's a lot of things about it that just really draw me in. I've always really liked the water. I have a Poseidon tattoo. I really do like anything water related. So I would be the same across the board. Any tips for retaliating Sea Shiranui banish recycling package and Layer of Darkness? Curious as to how you would improve a virus boosting zombie package in a deck. Crush card deck dev becomes significantly stronger under Retsi. I think that if you're playing zombie, I'd want to be as far away from anything banish related as possible. I know that there's like one Shiranui that when it gets banished, you can like pop something. So like some of those cards could work a little bit better. But like if you're going to be doing anything Layer of Darkness related, right? I feel like you're just going to be playing the new light and dark cards and then trying to just really utilize that as a Pilgrim Reaper zombie vampire turbo because that engine does it really well. And then you can play the Celtic Guardian to be able to cycle through a lot of cards too and be able to get to like your crush cards, your deck devs. But if you want to do like a more zombie focused mill strategy to be able to get into your powerful floodgates, right? I would definitely not be trying to focus more on like a banished relation. I'd be playing even like a copy of Shiren, right? Just so you have the additional mill. And then really trying to utilize your banshees, your zombie worlds, because zombie world isn't even like that terrible right now. I think it'd be pretty good. And then playing like Thrust, and then being able to get into your Crush card and your deck dev, because you also have cards in Layer of Darkness, like the Diabolosis, that can like rip cards from hand too. So if you're doing like a Chaos zombie build, you can do Chaos Legionnaire and the Diabolosis and rip two out of your opponent's hand before they can continue. And then you could also even summon something like Omega. So if you want to get real toxic with it, you really can. But yeah, I probably would stay away from banished cards if you're playing zombies. So if you're exclusively playing Master Duel, I feel like if you just grind a lot of the events and you do your dailies, you should be able to get to a point where you actually can get like a deck that you want to run. It's pretty easy to do, you just got to stay on top of it and then do a lot of like the events that pop up. But like if you really like RB and you really like Striker and you want to add like cyber support, I'd be doing like the Cyber Dark engine. I think that those cards are like really cool and it can be really utilized as like a minimal engine too. And they have a lot of really good support. And I feel like all three of these work together pretty well. If you want to just do like a smaller striker package, run RB and like some breakers, a lot of times that can do really well as well. Shout out to Alex Monlack, who's just been doing wonders with that deck. And the deck itself can be pretty scary when you play against it, right? So if you don't know what you're doing against RB, you probably should be looking up those cards just in case you run into it at some point. But overall, I feel like there's a lot of like generic machine support too. As far as something that's like good in budget, especially on like a Master Duel side, I believe Enneacraft is like 90 wires total, and that's really not a bad option. I hate saying that, I want to vomit a little bit, but like the deck itself's been doing well in the TCG, and I'm sure that it'll go over well into Master Duel as well. So, you know, if you want something else that's going to be rather budget and still doing a good job into the format, I would say it's probably just Enneacraft. What is your thoughts on the new L&D deck, and then why is it going to be Tier 0 next format? Listen, it's not going to be Tier 0, but it is very cool. It is very good. And I feel like this is going to be a crazy engine into multiple decks, and we're going to see it quite often. Now, I don't know if it's really going to be like that crazy popular. There's a lot of cards that people have to pick up out of Chaos Origins, including the new pot. So it's really going to depend on like what people can pick up before Nationals. So definitely going to be quite a bit of the Light and Darkness deck around. I feel like I'm even going to dabble with it a bit, and maybe I'll end up on it, but we'll see. There's definitely going to be a lot of new things going into the new format that is going to be Nationals format. And it's crazy because our Nationals is like one of the last Nationals. And so we get like every new set before our national event. So like we have like an unexplored territory format, right, in the TCG that a lot of new ideas just kind of pop up right at nationals and you're like, oh my god, right, like this is like crazy. And you don't really get the feedback before we go into our event from prior events because they don't have the same cards, right? So definitely can get a little difficult, a little frustrating for people, but that's where innovation really shines at events like nationals, because you have to be able to look at the format, figure out what's going to be the best, and just like take it to Nats and hope that your theory was correct. What do you prioritize before going to an event more? Theory, online testing, deck building, math? Honestly, it's deck building and math, because listen, if you're going to an event like nationals, right? You have an innate understanding of what you're bringing. You know what you're bringing. You know how your cards work. You are ready to play. You want to go to Worlds. If your building is off or your math is off and you're bricking, you're going to have a horrible time and a bad taste in your mouth when you go X3 drop. And that's a problem, right? And, you know, even at the last YCS, I didn't do too hot myself, but I can't tell you that there was a single game that I bricked. Like my build and my math was great. Like there was so many hands that I opened up, and even if it was like less optimal, I was still like, okay, like I can make this work, you know? And I think that you need to give yourself the best chance in a YCS Nationals where you're playing potentially, if you're going all the way, you're playing like 18 rounds, right? That's a lot of Yu Gi Oh! And if your deck can't play through that, you're going to have a horrible time, right? Because then you're like, all right, at some point I'm breaking. And it's probably still going to happen anyways, right? Like you're still going to like brick at some point, but like you have to minimize that as much as possible. But you also have to make sure that you have an adequate amount of hand traps per hand, right? Like if you want 2 hand traps per hand, you got to know what ratio you need in your deck to make sure that you're seeing a good mix of engine and non-engine. So I'd say that building a math is probably the most important before an event. But if you enjoyed today's video, definitely let me know down below in the comment section, and I'll check you all in the next one. Thank you.